how many four-letter words can I use on that?
Trying to switch to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown, Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to stick him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today is NC State Wrestling head coach Pat Popolizio. Coach, appreciate you taking your time out of your day to talk to me today. I'm looking forward to talking to you for quite a while, actually. Just your program is something that I love watching from afar whenever you guys cross over with Big 12 or Big 10 wrestling, and then I see you guys at NCAA's. Guys are a joy to watch. Just starting out summer training, guys, leading into the preseason right here. I can only imagine you guys have been busy over the past few months since the end of last year.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me on, and appreciate everything you're doing for our sport. Continue to grow it and put it out there as a platform. But yeah, I don't know if the season actually ever ended. I feel like we've rolled right into our spring freestyle, then summer started, and here we are again in the fall of preseason. So I think the seasons kind of bleed together, but we had a good opportunity to get our freshmen in here this summer and did a lot of freestyle in the off season. We just sent a few guys to the world team trials where Trent Hidlay, had a pretty solid tournament at Ryan Jack and Jackson Arrington, getting some valuable experience. But yeah, we've officially started our preseason. Actually just got done not too long ago this morning. So it was bright and early, but a great workout down here in Raleigh.
When you guys mentioned that all these seasons bleed into, blend into one another, and I've talked to a bunch of coaches that just say, yeah, like we never really stop. We go from folk style, freestyle, summer training, you kind of blend it all together. How's that balance been like for your program, for the guys that are focusing more on, either world team trials or U20s, U23s, however it breaks down? And then all of a sudden you switch back to preseason camp where you're going back to folk style and get ready for the upcoming college season. How have you guys been able to manage that basically since the end of March?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's a lot of moving components, and we're thankful to have really good coaches right now. And adding Coach Jamil Kelly to our RTC is taking a little bit of pressure off of, I guess, the day-to-day freestyle practices, and then the travel this weekend. We were able to send him there, and obviously we had a big recruiting weekend. So, trying to balance both is always a chore, but we're blessed to have great coaches down here, and just throwing in a Jersey native, Zack Esposito, not too long ago. But it's been good. We've recruited guys that want to make world and Olympic teams. And, over the last 7 years, we brought home 7 world medals between senior, U20, U23. So we're pretty active in the freestyle circuit. We always support it and know that guys, have the ultimate goal is to make a world or Olympic team. And in the process of that, you're competing to win national titles at the college level. So it's a lot to balance, but if you're trying to win an NCAA title, you're obviously intrigued with the freestyle side of things. And USA Wrestling right now is hitting from all cylinders. So we got a lot of great depth in this country, and it's just hopefully, NC State's one of those programs, keep adding to it and get guys like Isaac Trumbull, who, was in the Olympic trials finals, and Trent that made national team. So we got a good group of guys right now with a core freestyle background here, and we want to keep developing guys.
I'm glad you put the emphasis on that because you guys just reeled in the number 12 recruiting class in 2024. So you got a bunch of new hammers coming in. When you go out and recruit these guys, and you guys have ranged in recruiting classes from top 15 to top 10 to top 5 in recent years. When you make your pitch to these guys, not only are you preaching, hey, you could become an All-American national champ here, do you put a lot of emphasis on what they can do with the RTC and what they can do on the freestyle circuit, or heck, even a Greco-Roman circuit?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the top guys, their goals are obviously to win world and Olympic titles, and that's something we preach here at NC State. And we're fortunate enough now to have a little bit of a track record for that. And I think sometimes resumes speak for themselves, and we can actually say, hey, when Gwiz was here, he took bronze twice at the senior level. Trent placed at U20s, U23s, and then this last summer, Isaac Trumbull, the summer before, won U23s, and Maddie Singleton was a bronze medalist as well. So I think we can lay out our resume and show guys that we can develop both folk style and freestyle and get guys ready for big tournaments. And I think that's what top recruits want. And we want guys that are motivated for that too. I think if your goal is to win a world or Olympic title, you're obviously motivated to win an NCAA title. I think, all styles of wrestling help each other. Freestyle helps folk style helps freestyle, Greco-Roman. They're all a benefit. If you're good at all three of them, you're really good at one of them. That's for sure.
Just one more on that recruiting class, since this is another solid class, bro, coming in. You just mentioned how you're able to get the freshmen in over the summer. What really stood out about this class here in 2024? I know you have another Orini's coming in, for example, and you've had a lot of top 100 guys overall, pound for pound. What are these guys? What have they shown you in the room so far, and what do you expect their impact to be coming this season?
Well, most importantly is they mirror our mentality. They fit our culture. And I think when you get that, you can have a really dangerous recruiting class. And yeah, on paper, you can rank them out and obviously their resumes speak for themselves. But when you mirror that with returners, I think you get a really good combination. And I've seen, Dragan Orini, I'm extremely impressed with his work ethic. I know he's been through a lot in his high school career, but his focus and what he did academically this summer, and when we're doing any kind of conditioning or even in the room wrestling, his intensity is really high. This Saturday we did a really good hard track workout. He won every single sprint on the track. And to me, if you're a true freshman and you're working like that, I think your development's going to come around really fast. And we expect him to do some really good things. I think his ceiling's really high. But yeah, we brought in, there's multiple guys right now that I think the opportunities in front of them, if they want to break in and start in this lineup, I think it's fair game. And we got to develop them and they got to put the work in. But it's going to be a really good combination. And I can see some future leaders that are out of this class that we're probably going to rely on one or two of them this year.
I like how you mentioned the preseason workouts over the summer, track workouts. I know some teams do, they take advantage of the football stadium and they run up the stairs all the time. Do you try to find unique ways to challenge these guys physically over the summer where it's just not constantly wrestling, but you give them, like you said, a track workout? Do you try to push these guys, whether they're veterans or they're freshmen coming in different ways to say, hey, what limits can we reach and what do you ultimately get out of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And where we're at right now with the gap between freshmen coming in, some guys are almost, we have a couple guys on the team that are still 17. And then we have guys that are obviously got that extra COVID year that are in their sixth and maybe even seventh year in college. So we're trying to balance two kind of training scenarios right now. Jacob Camacho had a knee surgery a couple years back. So his workload's a lot different than a true freshman who's learning how to really train, and I think that's the important thing. You want to be really smart and selective. And obviously you never want to wear someone down or overtrain, but at the same time, you need to learn how to work at this level of college and be able to sustain that for a year. Yeah, anyone can come in and do the work and the workouts for, a week, but who can keep that intensity up? And you look at a guy like Trent Hidlay, who came in here and he was a guy from the beginning, he was running on a 10 his whole career in training. And now, as he got a little older, your body's not as, I guess, durable, should I say. And we had to tone back some things. The intensity was always there, but doing things smarter and less wear and tear on the body. So as a coach, we're always analyzing that. And then bringing Coach Esposito in right now, it's always good when you bring some new eyes into a program and getting his perspective on what can we do to be better, between the technical side of things. And that's one thing Zack is. He's a wizard when it comes to technique. But now let's implement some new training stuff as we get going and really ultimate goal is to peak at the end of the year. But we're building the base right now for our conditioning. And these next 6 weeks are pretty tough on our guys.
Before we get into this year's lineup, which again is loaded, and you do have a lot of veterans again here coming up in 24-25. You mentioned Coach Esposito came in, I believe, back in April, comes over from Oklahoma State. You mentioned he's a Jersey guy. He's well respected in a lot of wrestling circles across the entire country. What was that process like to bring him in to the program? And I can only imagine now, about 5, almost 6 months in, he's probably hit the ground running and he's made a pretty considerable impact on the Wolfpack already.
Yeah, and my relationship goes back to my days at Oklahoma State. I've always known Zack and respected him tremendously. His resume speaks for itself with all his accomplishments as an athlete. And then when you have all that experience at Oklahoma State, you can bring a lot to the table here. And that's something he's been able to do. You throw that in with Coach Kevin Jack, Coach Tommy Gant. It's a really good combination. And he's implemented a lot of new technical things. And I think it's gonna pay dividends for our guys. And it's easy for them to gain his respect knowing, the time that he's spending in the room and what he's willing to do. And the guy, we're all learning a lot from him, and I think he's seeing a new side of things with some stuff that we do here at NC State. So it's been a win-win, and we're excited to get in the competition mode with him. And I know he's always been a winner, and we expect him to do some great things for our program.
Since you guys have that Oklahoma State connection, are there things that you take from your experience back then and also what he did with the program recently that kind of meshes with what you guys have been building at NC State for over a decade?
Yeah, I mean, he's a winner, and that's obviously what we want to do. We want to keep winning, and we want to get guys to the top of the podium. So anybody that has that experience has been around greatness like that, it's only going to elevate you. And then you throw Coach Kelly in, who, we were college teammates. So there's a lot of good connections that we've all had together, so we understand each other pretty well. And then now just take what everyone's really good at and let's mesh it together to make it work as a unit here at NC State. And I think that's something, in due time, we'll get everything figured out to where we're operating at 100%. But right now, we're all still kind of learning who's who, what's what, and what everyone's great at. And I can tell you in the room, there's a lot of very high level technique going on right now.
Speaking of high level technique, but you obviously know who this guy is, Trent Hidlay. You've alluded to him already a few times in our conversation. And again, he comes from great wrestling family. His brother Hayden was a standout for you as well at NC State. But Trent, to me, just when people refer to NC State, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, you think of Trent Hidlay and what he was able to do at multiple weights. I know whether it was trying to chase down Penn State's Aaron Brooks and what he's done on the freestyle circuit as well. Seems like Trent was like always one of those guys that you always rooted for. What's it been like to basically just keep him in Raleigh, keep him in the RTC, keep him around the program? And I mean, he's probably essentially another de facto coach within the
no question about it. Yeah, he can't help but coach you, whether that's him training with you or just his mentality and how much he loves NC State, how much he loves to compete, and what he stands for as a person and his work ethic, his attitude. All that, and his brother Hayden as well. When you think NC State, those guys have helped build and really create this culture that we have going for our program. But those guys have been first class on and off the mat, and it was something when the season ended. We knew he had opportunities outside NC State, and we gave him the blessing to go look at those other programs. But I was confident in the end having Coach Kelly and Esposito here. And then you throw in the guys that are like Maddie Singleton medaling at Worlds, Isaac Trumbull medaling at Worlds, Dylan Fishback winning U23s, not this past year, but the year before. There's a lot of really good freestyle guys here in the room to push him as well. So it was a really good combination. I was just really happy for him to see that and pick NC State for his future to go on and accomplish his goals.
Your lineup this year for the guys that are still going to be competing for NC State this coming season, it's just loaded. I mean, I've looked at this lineup, I think, like 5 times over the last couple of days, just trying to decide. I don't know how you guys pretty much ever lose at this point, considering these guys have been in the program for so long. Jacob Camacho, you mentioned him before. Kai Orini's been great. Ryan Jack, Ed Scott, Christian Knopp, some of your seniors, and that's not even mentioning some of your guys that are juniors or redshirt juniors. So what does it mean for you to guys, and just in a general sense, what does it mean for you guys to have a veteran lineup? You brought a new recruiting class. You're expecting maybe some freshmen to step in right away this year, but the lineup is so veteran laden, a lot of 4, 5, 6-year guys. What does that do for you guys as a dual meet team, and ultimately what does it do as a program where you can develop these guys and get them into the lineup for 3 to 4 varsity seasons?
Yeah, and I think that's the key. When you can get guys in your lineup for 4 years, by the time they're seniors, those guys have the resume underneath their belt, but also the confidence and the experience to go on and really go deep into the NCAA tournament. So that is something we always try to get our younger guys in there sooner than later. And whether they're ready to go right out of the rip or they go through some growing pains, it does a lot for any program, not just NC State, but when you're wrestling a fourth year guy or fifth year guy in college, that they have a lot of good matches under their belt already. So I think you can mesh that really well with our past history lineups. We've done a really good job of having some older guys, younger guys, and I think that makes for a good team. And ultimately, dual meets are great and they help with the fan base, but right now we're still working to make sure we peak for that one weekend, and sometimes it's hit or miss, but that's the ultimate goal here is score as many points as you can at the NCAA tournament, and alongside of that, put on a really good show for our fan base when we do have, whether it's dual meets on the road or dual meets at home, and make it just a really entertaining atmosphere. And you want your guys to go out and put on a show, score points, and do some exciting things.
Has it helped your program over the last, let's just say, 5 to 7 years? I know that there's a lot of family-oriented lineups, it seems like, with you guys. You go the Hidlays, the Jacks, Machiavellos. There's another one. It seems like these guys just pop out of nowhere. The Arenis, obviously. Do you preach that a lot when you're going out and recruiting? And it's like, all right, this guy's a top recruit. Does he also have a brother? Do you look for that actively, or has it just been almost coincidental over the last 5 or so years?
You always hope that, right? If you get the oldest or the oldest brother and you treat him well and he has success, you would hope and think that the younger brother is going to follow. And I think that's something our staff's done a really good job at, is our guys stay happy and enjoy being here at NC State. Our fan base treats them really well. Our administration, support, and wrestling. So I think, as a family, you see all that and you want to add to that. And we have, we can go on and on. There's a lot of other family members that have come through here as well, and they've done some really good things for our program. But it makes it good for any time we have reunions and the brothers come back and the parents are still involved, and that kind of makes it a family setting. But yeah, I think it always helps. Hopefully you can get some that have maybe 2 or 3 younger brothers that are all good at wrestling.
You can basically just have about 12 years of dominance from those guys. It just seems like, in a broader sense for the ACC, because everyone loves to focus on the Big Ten. I come from a Big Ten school as well and see a lot of the Big Ten wrestling where it gets the bulk of the spotlight. The Big 12's done a great job in recent years as well. But the ACC I've always found intriguing, especially over the last roughly about 5 years, where the rise of the programs, and again, there's not many ACC wrestling programs compared to other conferences, but the rise of the conference as a whole in terms of quality wrestling. We could talk about Stanford in a second, but now they're part of the ACC despite being, across the entire country. But when you look at the conference as a whole and like the rise of that and just being almost on par with the other big conferences, what do you necessarily attribute that to?
Well, you're right. The Big Ten and Big 12 obviously have great history and tradition. And I think over the years, it's helped tremendously with certain programs. You look at, NC State's been one of them, UNC, Pitt, Virginia Tech. Those guys have all produced national champs now. And I think recruits can see that and say, hey, I can go to an ACC school and I can get a really tough schedule and I can win a national title. And then, each school is putting out multiple Americans here and there. So it's in play now, where maybe, like you said, 7, 8 years, maybe 10 years ago, the ACC didn't have that depth. There was an outlier here or there, or a team that was really good for a year. But now these programs are all pushing each other, and that's what, iron sharpens iron, and that's what we're seeing right now in the ACC. It's gotten really competitive. There's a lot of really great coaches, and the ACC supports wrestling. And we do Friday night duels right now, and our viewership's been really good. I know we're at home or on the road at certain schools. The gym's packed, and it's a great atmosphere to go out and compete in. And I think kids have taken notice of that, and it's another valuable option for one of the top recruits in the country to come to the ACC and be a part of it.
What did you make of Stanford being part of the ACC expansion? I know, again, expansion and conference realignment is mostly due to football and partly due to basketball these days, but now that Stanford and Cal and even SMU are in the ACC overall. But what do you make of Stanford wrestling now being a part of the ACC?
I think it's great. We get to add another really good school in, and those guys are doing a phenomenal job out there. And Chris Ayers, obviously Hayden's out there as well, but he's got a ton of experience being at Princeton. And he's going to elevate that program, and they've shown in years past they can produce at a high level as a team and individuals. So that's going to help the ACC. and as time goes on, who knows how the landscape of conferences are going to look, but yeah, it would be great. The bigger the conferences get, I think the more it can prepare you in the end. And we're just thankful we added another team and another really good. I think it's going to add a lot of good depth now in the weight classes and really shake things up. As far as last couple of years, it's been the same teams in the conference. So adding some new faces in there, I think is healthy.
Do you anticipate any differences in recruiting? I know, again, you're probably more of an East Coast guy and maybe get out to the Midwest, but now that you have a West Coast school that competes against you directly, does that kind of force you to go out to the West Coast and to recruit California, recruit Arizona, and perhaps vice versa for Stanford to say, and again, I know Chris Ayers has the Jersey background with, being the head coach of Princeton for so long, but do you think that kind of adds to the recruiting battles where maybe you should look out on the West Coast, and obviously with Stanford, maybe look at more East Coast kids at this point, considering the competition directly against each other?
Yeah, I do. I think, now that we're able to add a West Coast team and know that, it's going to be a home and away, depending on the year, I think it's a valuable option. Raleigh has direct flights to California, depending on what part of the state you're in. So it's easy for us to go out there and say, hey, you're a direct flight away from being back home. I know it's a long ways from home. It's going to be interesting when we do have to go out west just for a dual meet. We do it for Vegas and get a day or two to kind of get our bearings, but it'll be interesting to go out there for a dual meet and wrestle on West Coast time. And it's going to make you better. A little adversity, I think, is good coming towards the end of the year and being battle tested. But yeah, it was interesting when Stanford got added in, because right now, you look at the ACC schools, they're either a drive away or a direct flight, not too far. But adding Stanford in there, we're going to get a lot of time together as a team when they go out there, and vice versa for them. I know, it's a little harder on them because they got to come out to the East Coast a little bit more than, a team going out there one time. But we're just excited to add another team, and I know it's going to be great for the ACC.
Was Vegas your guys' furthest trip, regardless of a dual meet or a tournament? And I got to imagine, now that you have Stanford, it's going to be a little bit longer. But was Vegas your longest trip?
Yeah, Vegas. That time change was always fun. Getting out there, getting up in the morning made it easier. But you're usually going to bed at like 6 o'clock. You're like, wow, why do I feel so tired? And you're like, oh yeah, the 3-hour time change. But when you get up in the morning, it works to your advantage. So it'll be interesting. As time plays on, we get a late dual meet. We're going to have to keep our guys up late at night for some of those duels.
How do you guys adjust that? I mean, I got to imagine when you get off the plane, it's like, all right, we're off the plane. Once we're in the hotel, like straight to the hotel gym. Let's go for a run. Let's get a lift in. Like, what do you guys do?
We used to go out to Vegas the day before weigh-in, so we'd fly out there Thursday. But a couple years back, we ended up getting delayed and stuck in an airport, and then we landed at like 2 a.m. and had to be up for weigh-ins at whatever time it was. So the guys had like 4 hours of sleep, and I was like, no, never again. We're going 2 days out. So we learned our lesson the hard way, but sometimes you got to go through that as inexperience in your beginning of your career coaching, going out to the West Coast.
I love it. Hey, adjusting on the fly. Speaking of the atmospheres that you guys bring at NC State, I believe you sold out a match last year, maybe a couple matches last year. Or it was your highest attendance, I believe, last year.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough. We, obviously, the 2 ACC duels with UNC and Virginia Tech, and then having Oklahoma State at home. For us on paper, it was a sellout, and it was rowdy and a great atmosphere to compete in. And that's one thing we take a lot of pride in here in our fan base. But when you can fill an arena, as you know, you're part of Rutgers, and Coach Goodale has done a phenomenal job of promoting and getting people to come and support. It makes the dual meet so much more exciting, and it's just loud and rowdy. And I remember when I first got to NC State, we would have about 50 people in the stands, and working really hard as a staff and an administration and our alumni, that was something that we were able to little by little keep climbing. And then putting the bells and whistles out for a dual meet, I think, was extremely important. And the timing of a dual meet, if you're wrestling on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, your crowd's not going to be that great. So, or you're going head to head with some high school tournaments as they cross over to be your fan base, being selective on that. And that's something we've worked really hard to do, and making sure when we have a dual meet here, we're able to promote it and get our fans here and make it a really, really good atmosphere.
It's funny you actually brought up Coach Goodale, because that you guys are going up to Jersey, but you're not going to Jersey Mike's Arena. You're going to go to Tom's River for I think it's the Journeyman Duels, or it's another Journeyman event. but it's going to be right in Tom's River. You know, that's right in a coach's
It's
backyard.
going to be a home Rutgers duel, just not on campus, probably.
Yeah, it's going to be a small arena, about 3. What do you make of stuff like that? Because I know, you know, knowing Coach for 10 years at this point, he's always trying to do some unique things with the dual meet. He's a big dual meet guy, as am I. Are you along those same lines where you're like, that's a unique atmosphere? There's going to be 4 teams there. I believe Princeton and LIU are the other 2 teams. Yep. But it's going to be a smaller, more intimate arena, only about 3,000 people. What do you make of that?
I think it's great. You know, obviously you want dual meets on campus, but, you know, sometimes scheduling can be a conflict. This makes it real easy. We were able to pick a date and time, didn't have to worry and wait to see if a gym was available, you know, and fast forward to next year, it's the same kind of thing here. We're going to pick a part of a place in the state and do the same thing. But having my brother involved, who does journeyman wrestling, he does a really good job at promoting events and making them a really good atmosphere. And so we both had a lot of trust in that and know that it's going to be really good for the fans, and then also great wrestling on both sides of the thing, and having 2 duels going on at the same time. And I know Jersey fans are into it, and they're passionate, and going to make it a great atmosphere and make it really hard on our guys. And we appreciate that and look forward to that.
I'm not sure how far in advance you guys try to schedule, just to even, you know, and I know there's no, and I'll get into a potential dual meet championship in a second, but when you guys schedule, again, you have your ACC schedule, you try to schedule these in-season tournaments, like you said, going to Vegas, sometimes teams go over to Midlands. When you try to schedule in advance, and I know when you look for non-conference duels, do you try to actively try to find the best teams always? I mean, how do you balance between saying, you know, we want the top 4 Big Ten teams on our schedule, the top 2 Big 12 teams on our schedule, and then we'll sprinkle in some other schools that, you know, it'd be a good showcase event for them. How do you balance that when you look at future schedules?
I look at it more for the sport, you know, and I think we get too caught up into winning and losing the dual meets. But I watched last night Pitt versus Penn State in volleyball. Mm-hmm. That was a huge, regardless of who won that event, that was a huge success for women's volleyball. And if wrestling can pick that up, we can make that next jump as a sport. And I think that's been some of the bigger challenges right now. Certain teams won't compete against each other in a dual meet because, yeah, they're, you know, maybe it's the year that they do have 6 seniors in the lineup and they're going to be really good. And if you're not in the conference, there's no need to really have that dual meet because, again, we don't get rewarded with the dual meets other than a record. And to me, I'm more into that has really built up our fan base is because the dual meets were so exciting. So I saw the growth. You've seen it with Rutgers. You see the growth that has, and then the support you get alongside of that. And I really just wish we could come up with a format that would put us in some kind of position where the best teams were forced to have to wrestle each other, and we're rewarded for it too. You know, I get it. There's got to be some reward for the risk, and whether that's, you know, the stadium being full and some of the revenue going through it. You know, there's creative things now that people can do, but I understand the reasons why. You know, the Big Ten has a very challenging schedule to begin with, so to throw outside competition in, you know, sometimes is counterproductive. But in the end, I think it's gonna help our sport if we can get, you know, the more top 10 matchups we can get, the more growth we're going to see with college wrestling.
As far as a potential dual meet championship is concerned, whether you have a team tournament to get, you know, that'll crown your national champion for the year, then you still the individual tournament, maybe don't touch that at all. That's the way I like. I don't know how you do it exactly, but everyone's got ideas. Were you at what is? It sounds like you're more on board with trying to up the dual meet and to get the teams involved, and obviously because of your fan base and other fan bases. Were you at one point not in the realm of we need that, and you were still just all about the individual tournament at the end of the year?
No, I love the individual tournament at the end of the year for the individuals. You know, this concept of wrestling duels all year and then flipping to the very end and going back to an individual, it doesn't seem right. I analyze other sports. There's not many that do that. Most of them have, you know, it's like, why did the college football switch to 12-team playoff? It leaves a little room for error in the beginning. And, you know, once you get into that top 12, you know, playoff series, everything resets and you have an opportunity again to go out and the goal is still in front of you. But I think it would add a lot more storylines if we did the dual meets, and it would, you know, week to week, you wouldn't see as many the top stars maybe sitting out because you were forced to have to go out and win that dual meet. So there's a lot of pros to it, and obviously you see the cons that, you know, what we've been doing has been consistently working, but it's time to make some growth with college wrestling. And, you know, the landscape's changing with the revenue sharing and things like that. So if we can get creative, you know, maybe we can do some things that will benefit the athletes that are in these lineups. And, you know, it's got to show with the, you know, TV. How do we get on mainstream right now? How do we get a dual meet live on one of the main channels throughout the year, week to week? Because I think that's where you're going to see the growth. And that's certain sports right now are blowing up because it's the viewership. You know, women's softball right now, the viewership's up. Women's volleyball, the viewership's up. Women's basketball, all these are up. And what are we doing to make sure that wrestling keeps growing and stays in the fight? And that's something I think we got to really zone in on and focus.
Yeah, I was about to allude to women's volleyball. The spike in viewership and spike in interest over the last couple of years has been unbelievable, especially within the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten at least does a great job with these Olympic sports, but volleyball all around, I think, is really taking a big spike in the Big Ten, SEC, wherever the case may be. Pat Popolizio with me here on On3 Wrestling. Coach, a couple more for you. And again, I appreciate your time. You mentioned the revenue sharing, which is coming down the pipe. We think next year, but as I tell everybody, we don't know. It could change tomorrow. It changed yesterday for all I know. When it comes to the revenue sharing, because that'll probably drastically affect football and basketball, and then a trickle-down effect. So even before I even ask you about the transfer portal and the NIL, when it comes to the revenue sharing, what have you been told by, maybe your administration? How do you relay that information to your guys? And I can only imagine the challenge of it, considering this could drastically change, like I said, even by next week, as far as how it's going to go.
I mean, we've been told the same thing that probably everyone's reading. The court cases are going through in California, and the judge is the one that's deciding a lot of this. But just like you said, there's really nothing that has changed. And as of right now, we're still operating on the rules that have been in play for the last, decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some NCAA rules change here and there, but nothing has been approved yet. So I think it's all just what ifs. And if it does change, people will be ready to adapt and adjust, and it's always going to benefit the athletes. And we just got to find creative ways. And that's why I really do hope we can do some creative things with the dual meets to keep us in the fight when it comes to all the stuff that's out there and unique ways to generate money for programs and even athletes.
When you talk about generating money for the athletes, and again, until the revenue sharing is a thing, it's almost like it's a fundraising effort. It's almost like you're back in high school, you have to fundraise, but it seems like that's just a reality for Olympic sports in comparison to football and basketball, where the money maybe is easier to find. How do you approach your philosophy when it comes to NIL? And I'm not sure how much of a pitch of that from you is in recruiting or maybe even the transfer portal. How do you balance the fine tuning between this is how I'm going to run my program, but you also have to adapt to these are the sweeping changes that have happened over the course of the last couple of years in college athletics?
Well, it's been great for the guys. They've been rewarded for, their work and the time, and it's great for the athletes, but there's got to be some fine balance between the two. Mm. And I think what I like about what's going on here at NC State is our guys who people know are getting rewarded, and they're more marketable. The more success they've had is the more they're able to go out in our community, and that helps having a really good fan base because people come to matches, and business owners and people that have really good connections in Raleigh, and they want them to be a part of their businesses. So we've been able to, see guys from anywhere that was a national qualifier to an All-American to someone like Trent, who is a really big name in Raleigh, find good ways to get NIL deals. And they also do some things on their own. And I think that's the important part, is these guys are learning the business side of things, not just having stuff thrown at them and handed to them. They're going out and putting the work in and have a business plan. Trent on the side was doing all these little marketing, whether it was apparel or doing some video stuff with different organizations, and making really good side money on himself just by his brand and hustling what he stood for. And so, we got some guys that are in the military, so there's military people that want them to be Isaac Trumbull, Owen, and Faison last year were on ROTC. So anyone that was connected to the military had a couple of avenues to do some creative stuff. And our department our collective has done a really good job implementing some Olympic sport athletes into similar things that, some of the football and basketball players get. So I've been really happy with it. It's kept our locker room rock solid. No one's looking over to the left or right wondering why someone got something different than they did. I think everything's been transparent, and that's kept our culture rock solid. And at the end of the day, we need to show up and focus on the goal, and that's getting, one, your college degree, going out and being as good as you can in the mat, and everything else is going to fall into play. But if you put all that other stuff first, you might get sidetracked and a little distracted, and our guys know what's at stake and know that they're going to get taken care of here.
So it seems like to be your message to the locker room. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're preaching the old school adages, and I don't want to call them cliches, but you focus on getting better, getting your college degree. And do you make it an emphasis to say that this is reality and this is part of college now with all these NIL deals and the ability to make money as an athlete? But if you put in the work, it kind of just comes to you, and we encourage you to go out on your own, within the rules and the legality of it. But if you do it on your own and you put the effort into that, like you would on the mat and in the classroom, it all kind of falls into place.
It does. And I think, being at the right situation when you have a really good fan base, and our fan base is here at NC State, and not just wrestling, is educated now on NIL, and you're around people that want to see success, so they know, they got to get involved, and you got to do the right thing to open opportunities for these athletes. And football and basketball right now, yeah, there's really big things happening, but I can see it right now growing at the college wrestling level, and there's more and more kids, whether it's something back at their hometown or something in the town they're in. There's people that now can actually, in a legal way, support them and actually use their name and image to promote businesses. And I think it's a great, if it's done the right way, it's great. If it's done just because of, hey, we're trying to figure out some things, I think, that's where people are getting frustrated. Mm-hmm. But we're going to do what we can. We're going to show up. We're going to work hard. And I think everything's going to keep moving in the right direction for us, the way we operate.
Well, Coach, I can't wait to see you guys on the mat this coming winter. And obviously, when you guys come up to Jersey, that's going to be quite a treat for all the Jersey fans as well. Before I let you go, any events coming up for alumni or anything you want to plug for your program as the preseason rolls on here?
Well, we got, not this weekend, next weekend, we have a big golf outing, which we're pumped. A lot of former NC State guys. Darian Caldwell, rumor is he's coming back, so we hope to see another Jersey native down here. He's a legend at NC State, winning a national title and being OW. And you mix that in with some current recent grads and there's a lot of really well-off NC State alum that have done some wonderful things, but we try to get them back every year, and this will be a great event to kick that off.
Awesome. Love the air. Pat Popolizio with me right here on On3 Wrestling. Coach, appreciate your time. Good luck this season. Hope to see you up in Toms River in a couple of months, and we'll cross paths then.
You bet. Appreciate everything.
Pat Popolizio with me right here on On3 Wrestling. I'm Nick Kosko. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video, and of course, check out our content at on3.com.